your kind of company.
Tonight on CTV3 News, gunshots flare in Corozal as police looking at the eruption of a turf war. The definitive agreement is back at center stage as it remains under high scrutiny. Tilapia farming at Belize High School of Agriculture. And the Met Service tells us what is causing this year's severe heat. These are some of the stories we have for you tonight in our newscast for Tuesday, June 12th, 2023.
Special guest in the audience tonight, legendary record executive, Mr. Clive Davis.
My voice is gone. What? You start the show tonight. No talking back. I'm your mother.
There's a boy I know. He's the one I dream of.
What's your name again?
Whitney Elizabeth Houston.
Wake up! It's on. It's on. Listen.
My dream? Sing what I want to sing, be how I want to be.
I say a prayer with every heartbeat.
Reach as big an audience as I can.
Common criticism of you, your music isn't black enough.
Look, I don't know how to sing black, and I don't know how to sing white either. I know how to sing.
I might have just heard the greatest voice of her generation.
Maybe.
Maybe. It's got to have a hook.
A hook?
Yeah.
I'll give it a hook.
And now, the hottest match of the evening. Get ready for action! Here they come. Amazing. They're unstoppable. Unbeatable. They have him on the ropes. The heat rises to the top. 1, 2, and 3. They're on fire. Chiladas. Fire up the taste of Belize with the new Chiladas crunchy tortilla taco chips in its hot chili flavor. Fiery habanero brings the heat. They're on fire. Chiladas. From Snackers, done right, done here.
I wanted to show them something that wasn't an illusion. Something that was real. Something that they could see and touch.
Humans and dinosaurs can't coexist. We created an ecological disaster.
Ellie Sattler.
Alan Grant.
You didn't come out all this way just to catch up now, did you?
You coming or what?
That's another plane, right?
Not exactly.
Don't move.
Good evening. With your news also simulcast on Fiesta FM 106.7, I am Ethan Rodriguez. Over the past few weeks, gun violence seems to be a major cause for concern in northern Belize, specifically in the Corozal district. Last night after the news, our newsroom received reports of shots being fired in the area of Circle K Supermarket and G Street in Corozal Town around 9 o'clock p.m. A small video shared with our newsroom confirms the presence of Corozal police shortly after the sounds of gunshots receded in the area. And earlier today, police confirmed that shots were indeed fired on G Street, South Corozal. Corozal CIB, along with QRT, SB, and GI3 officers visited the residence of Jorge Valencia, where his son Michael Valencia, 18 years old, told police that when he was exiting his dad's house to accompany Juan Moises Zul, he suddenly heard several loud bangs like that of gunshots. Both men ran for cover and waited for the shots to subside. After making checks, no one was seen in the area. Further checks by police revealed that about 8:45 p.m., Brandon Sanker, alias Black Smoke, and another male person stopped at Valencia's residence to purchase weed. When the men left the area, a dark SUV vehicle passed by and drove up the street and stopped. Thereafter, a tall, slim-built male person wearing a white sweater, a cap, and a black bag on his back exited the black SUV and ran towards Valencia's house. Right after, several gunshots were heard coming from in front of Valencia's house. The male person then ran back down the street, making good his escape. Reports indicate that no one was injured during this incident. Police recovered 11 7.62 shell casings on the street side, while 11 bullet holes were seen on the metal gate that leads into Valencia's yard. Inside the yard, police also saw 6 bullet holes on the wall of the house, 2 bullet holes on the window, and 3 bullet holes on the front of the veranda of the house. Additionally, 2 bullet fragments were retrieved, one from the wall of the house and one from the inside of the front window of the house. Officers are still working in obtaining video surveillance in the area to ascertain the details surrounding the case. Police have also detained Brandon Sanker of a Waikokal area Corozal town address. The matter is still under investigation. The Orange Walk District's leading agriculture-based high school, BHSC, in the community of San Lazaro is looking to enhance its prospects with the introduction of tilapia farming for the upcoming 2023-24 school year. The project is being funded through a collaboration with the Belize Marketing and Development Corporation, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the high school's agriculture department, and is expected to be retrofitted with 3 5,000-gallon ponds each with over 500 fishes. The project, according to agricultural science teacher at BHSC Ernesto Pech, will fit seamlessly with other established agricultural programs at the institution.
We partnered together with BMDC, and thankfully through them and the Ministry of Agriculture as well, because they are the ones who also will be providing us with assistance, with technical information, with training on how to go about handling and taking care of a pond. BMDC was kind enough to grant us these 3 ponds, which are worth approximately over $25,000. We are in a process at the moment with this project where we are on progress, because at the moment, as you can see, we are putting in electricity, we are putting in current so that we can put in pumps for our filtration systems. And this filtration system will take us about a month to complete, since it's a work in progress where these things have to be done careful and prepared well, because we are investing quite a bit of money in this project. So in the coming year, we will be working on it during the summer, so that in the coming year, our project is ready, the 3 tanks will be filled, and the 3 tanks will be, we will introduce approximately 500 fingerlings into each tank, which will be in production. What we want to do is to aim for the market, especially during Easter when there's a shortage of fish. So you want to make sure that in October, for you to have fish in April, which is the Easter time, you need to introduce the fish in October. Because the fish takes approximately 5-6 months to develop and to have that market size and value. So that's what we want to work on, so that in the new coming school year, we want to be prepared. We want to be prepared, introducing our fingerlings at that time.
The project will be available for third farm students who will be actively engaged in maintaining and growing the fish, as well as learning pond management.
Students will be able to not only learn in the classroom theoretically, but they will also now have the opportunity to be able to do it hands-on and practical in the field. Here, what they will be looking at is how to grow tilapia from their very initial stage as fries or fingerlings up to a mature stage 6 months later on, and be able to market it. Um, they will learn about the feeding process of the tilapia, uh, looking at different uh, food to meat conversion ratios and how to be able to calculate how much food you need to give to the fish on a certain time, being able to do this as the fish grows in different levels and either increasing or decreasing the feed depending on the weight of the fish. They will also be learning about how oxygenation occurs within a pond. They will also be learning about how what pH is adequate for fish. You'll be learning about how different filtration systems work in tilapia farming. Um, in the class, they get a complete course in aquaculture where they learn about the different types of fish. They learn about the growth of the fish. They learn about the internal and the external anatomy of the fish. They learn about how to sex a fish. They learn the growth process, the packaging process, as well as the marketing process. So in our aquaculture now, our students will not only have that theoretical information now, but they will also be able to do it hands-on. If any of these students eventually uh, graduate, go out into the community, they will be able, if they want to learn to survive on tilapia farming, because here they will have a first-hand look at tilapia farming.
Similar to other agriculture ventures of the school, including vegetable farming and poultry production, the tilapia farms, according to Pitch, is expected to produce an extra form of income for the school after the product is marketed and sold.
This project, for me, is, how can I say, something very, very commendable, because it will bring not only a increase in profits for our agriculture project, because actually when these fish are sold, it will be an income added to the school, which for me is very, very, very good, because yes, as you mentioned earlier, we do also grow crops and we also sell our crops to the local community. This project will provide fish not only for the community around, but also for each student that works with them. Um, it is not only important in the aspect of bringing an economic value to the school, but it is also important because when we end the cycle of tilapia farming, the water that remains is a very nutritious water. It is a very fertile water. Hence, that water will be able to also be used in our irrigation system. One of our problems, as I mentioned, is the scarcity of water. And this water will also help with our farming projects. We want to establish a lime orchard to the back of the pond, where when we release the water, that water will go directly to the orchard, providing a well fertile water to the plants.
The school is also expected to receive capacitation from technicians from the Ministry of Agriculture to ensure success in this new venture. The definitive agreement continues to make headlines tonight as it remains under high scrutiny. The latest to pen down his discontent with the document, even though it was signed under the administration of his father as Prime Minister, is the lead of opposition, Shine Barrow. In a 4-page letter, Barrow writes in fierce wording to Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, who signed an MOU with Portico a couple months ago to construct a whopping 355 million US dollar cruise port. In the letter, Barrow tells Jason Liberty, who is the president and CEO of the Royal Group, that his father, former Prime Minister Dean Barrow, and former Attorney General of Belize Michael Perfit have come out to publicly condemn, quote, the agreement as having been signed secretly by a rogue former minister without lawful authority of cabinet approval, unquote. Today, in a lengthy press conference, as has now been the norm for the leader of the opposition, he spoke about why he sent off that letter and its contents.
I think that there should be no negotiation on the part of the government with Royal Caribbean. And if I were Royal Caribbean, I would have nothing to do with Portico. They would have to go on a pause. Portico had to have known that the signature of the former minister without cabinet approval, without cabinet acknowledgement, without the subcommittee from the cabinet, was worthless. You could have signed that. I mean, not because you're a minister means that you're not answerable to cabinet, and that is the reason why all governments, when they bring legislation to the House of Representatives, the last words they say is, and this has the recommendation of the cabinet. And Portico was in the process of being reviewed by the cabinet and the cabinet subcommittee. So to get a signature from the former minister before that cabinet and subcommittee review was concluded, again, to me, was unethical and highly inappropriate. So to present that to Royal Caribbean, to me, was fraud.
And the punches did not stop there. According to Barrow, the members of Royal Caribbean have no backbone or history of work to back up a project that will cost hundreds of millions of dollars.
Let us look at what I explained to Royal Caribbean. Geg and Gulab Sharma have absolutely no track record of any such project on this scale. Sharma is a free zone operator. Mr. Geg is a tour guide operator. Then you have Mike Finstein, who is a renowned tourism stakeholder, has spent tens of millions of dollars in developing tourism projects, in particular the recent State Bank development, has a definitive agreement with the government of Belize since 2017, had a causeway approval that the now government is disputing. Then you look at Waterloo, again, a port that is in existence. A group, the Waterloo Group, affiliated with Lord Ashcroft, billionaire, owns 60% of the banking market. So, two projects that have the credibility and the legitimate agreements to move forward. And now here we have Portico just come and skip over what would be the two most credible projects. It begs the question, how did they get the EIA and Waterloo never get the EIA when Geg's project is dredging 1 million more than Waterloo? Why is it that Finstein Group, their causeway permit is being questioned by the government of Belize? When you listen to the Minister of Tourism yesterday on TV, he said that, oh, we have a cruise port emergency. The cruise ships need docking facilities that do not require tender. So you tell me, what proof does Portico have that they even have the money to get started?
We know the letter from Barrow to Royal Caribbean is only recent, so we asked him if there has been any response as yet.
I think it would be a waste of time for them to continue with Portico when, as I've outlined, you have two legitimate projects. As I proffered, Mr. Finstein has already invested tens of millions of dollars into State Bank, and he's a causeway away from being ready to dock the big ships and have a solution.
The existing plan as is requires the facility to build an artificial peninsula in a manatee reserve, and that itself is raising eyebrows. Barrow ended his letter by basically letting Royal Caribbean Cruise Line know that they follow pursuit, quote, under the thick clouds of suspected corruption that currently enshroud it. I will have no choice but to have my government review and use all legal courses to remedy this matter when I'm elected as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, unquote. We will be following the story for any response from Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. Of note is that Barrow has also written a letter addressed to the newly installed Ombudsman to investigate the Prime Minister, John Briceño. So after all the rumbling of the definitive agreement and Royal Caribbean Cruise Line to build a $300 million cruise port, the question is who is to blame for an agreement that is deemed bad for Belize, the way it is structured, and brings to light another case of possible corruption? There is no doubt the DA was signed by former Minister Erwin Contreras under the Dean Barrow administration, who reigned for 13 years in government. Contreras, it has been proven, signed the agreement only a few days before the 2020 general election. The press asked Shine Barrow the very same, who is to blame?
Who is the government of Belize today? I'm asking a question. Okay, who runs the cabinet today? Who brought that definitive agreement to the PUP cabinet? We don't, hold on, ma'am, we don't even know that. They are not even answering that. When you ask Chris Cowie who bring the document, he said he can't disclose confidential cabinet matters. You ask the Attorney General what was her opinion. Oh, she can't discuss privileged confidential matters. But this is PUP fecal matter that they try make into chocolate ice cream. If you want, but let's be real. The UDP has disavowed and denounced what the former minister did. From the former Prime Minister, Attorney General, everyone has come out, myself included, and said that was wrong, that shouldn't have been done. The question has to be asked, why was the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, his Minister of State, why were they so intent on bringing that to Cabinet? That should have never made its way to Cabinet. That should have made its way to a press briefing with the entire Cabinet saying, look at the fecal matter of the UDP. Could you believe this is what they did? Then I would have nothing to say other than to join in condemning any such acts of impropriety and illegality.
Without facts to back up his claim, Shine Barrow alludes that the definitive agreement was a scheme of pension for the big boy, referring to ministers of government. What is fact is that the definitive agreement is on hold since it will need revisiting and amending before it can be presented to Cabinet for approval. But on the other end of the conversation, it appears that most of what Shine Barrow is saying appears almost entirely in script of other letters sent off to either the Portico project by the Ashcroft Alliance or Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. If that was not enough, Shine Barrow is on record saying he supports Port of Belize Limited's expansion, which is largely owned by Lord Ashcroft. When asked whether his advocacy leans on one side because of personal interest, he responded defiantly.
Mr. Finstein is saying the same thing that Mr. Ashcroft is saying. Mr. Finstein is taking the government to court as we speak. Are you not aware of that? I'm asking.
They have written a letter
threatening legal
So
action.
they haven't
So they're threatening. Why are they threatening legal action? Because of this portico. Exactly, because of portico. And in this interview, I have sung the praises of Mr. Finstein, and I have described the possibilities of Waterloo. I am consistent. Ma'am, please, you're questioning me now, right? You've gone from the Prime Minister. I have been consistent. I have always supported Waterloo. My position is that may the best port project win, which is what the Prime Minister initially said. I have gone on record to say that I thought that Waterloo was the best port project. I have a right to that opinion. I have not done anything. What proof do you have of any impropriety, any illegality that I have engaged in as far as this matter is concerned? We are not dealing with a person when it comes to the stevedores and the ESAT. I stood up for the stevedores and the ESAT. You swear to God that PBL is owned and operated and managed by Lord Ashcroft. And I had no difficulty in standing up for the stevedores and saying that PBL needs to comply with the ESAT. So what supper am I singing for, ma'am? From my experience and from my own analysis, Waterloo was the best. But in this conversation and in my letters, I have not advocated for Waterloo. I, in my letter to Royal Caribbean, said to Royal Caribbean that they should look at Stake Bank and Waterloo as alternatives. So what supper am I singing for?
Saying that you have expressed support for the port project, and as it relates to campaign financing, and you know how things work, we have never been able to determine or find out who contributes what to any of the political parties. So it's a fair question to ask you if you are benefiting from this advocacy in any way.
Mama,
and you have responded.
yes. So could we move on?
Coming up next, can Belizeans expect a relief from the heat soon? The Met Service tells us. Stay tuned.
El siguiente es un mensaje del Sugar Industry Control Board. Estimados socios de la industria cañera, en una reunión realizada hoy, 12 de junio del 2023, entre los socios de la industria cañera y el SICB, se decidió que el cierre de la zafra 2023 sería el día jueves 15 de junio del 2023 a las 12 del día. El SICB le pide a todo grupo de cosecha que hagan el último esfuerzo para cosechar y entregar toda la caña posible. Queremos agradecer a Dios por darnos la oportunidad de lograr una zafra más y pedirle que nos ilumine, fortalezca y continúe bendiciendo con salud y sabiduría para prepararnos mejor para la próxima zafra. A todos los que hicieron posible esta zafra, gracias, porque sin ustedes, cortadores, choferes, familias, jefes de grupo, líderes cañeros y todo empleado de BSI, asociaciones y SICB, un agradecimiento muy especial por todo el esfuerzo realizado. Un agradecimiento especial al gobierno de Belice por los apoyos a la industria, especialmente por el gran apoyo a través del subsidio en el diésel. Dado los retos humanos y de la variabilidad climática, actuar de buena fe y honestidad entre todos los socios, así como la importancia de hacer el mantenimiento de las plantaciones para asegurar una mejor producción para la próxima zafra, la fertilización, control de malezas, la mosca pinta y el gusano barrenador son necesarias para asegurar la producción y un mejor nivel de vida para todos. Esperamos que para la zafra 2023-2024 podamos trabajar en hermandad para lograr una mejor zafra. Gracias a todos por hacer realidad esta zafra. Esto es un mensaje del Sugar Industry Control Board, SICB.
When hungry or craving, when laughter or tears, enjoy the best snacking or flavors are here. Asadas, bocadas, chiladas, doradas, delicious for snacking, done right and done here.
Done right, done here.
LG dual inverter compressor cools air faster by operating at speeds as high as 120 Hz with more stability compared to conventional models. It also saves up to 70% more energy by operating at speeds as low as 10 Hz with more stability. It reduces torque vibration down to 40% for quiet outdoor unit operation. Stable operation with low vibrations also results in increased durability.
Noting the increasing demands for primary, secondary, and tertiary healthcare across the country, our administration has focused heavily on providing the delivery of healthcare services to Belizeans. As such, since coming to office, we have consistently expanded the delivery of primary care services through NHI. As you may recall, that it is in this financial year that the entire district of Farinjoak is for the first time being brought in with NHI. Increasing access to up to 40,000 Arinjokenyans. The year before, with the same budget that the UDP was using in Corozal for a small portion of the district, we expanded the full coverage of NHI in the Corozal district. So presently, we have almost 270,000 people that is going to be covered.
The 2022-23 academic school year is slowly winding down for high school students across the country. After a grueling year of academics filled with assignments, quizzes, and tests, today the staff at Belize High School of Agriculture hosted a fun day for its students, starting this morning with a math Olympiad. The event saw 5 groups from both the freshman and sophomore levels competing in various levels of mathematical questions. The Math Olympiad, according to Eric Kahl, a teacher at the institution, is geared at exposing students to friendly and healthy competition, while also exposing them to mathematics in a fun way.
Today is a day filled with several activities, and the Math Olympiad is mostly based on academic questions, problem solving, comprehension, and it has to do with a competitiveness between the different classes. For example, we had a class of A1, as you saw from the video there. We had B1, we had C1, A2, and B2, all of them competing with topics and content that has already been taught to them. They had approximately about a week to 2 weeks to prepare for this, whereby they were practicing, they were drilling on this, and the level of, I'd say, competitiveness that was demonstrated today is quite impressive on their behalf. And this is simply done, to challenge the students and to also create an interest in the mathematical field, because we have noted also that several students dislike mathematics because of the, I believe, level of comprehension, reading, problem-solving skills, analysis, synthesis, and everything that is encapsulated in it. So this activity was done, to try to motivate them even more, because at the end of the day, these types of skills are very useful in life. We do want to engage students in all areas. Like currently right now in our curriculum, we are implementing competency-based projects, activities, tasks, etc. So it's very necessary for students to start engaging into these types of activities so that they can compete and see real-life situations As you saw from the questions, they were comprehension and problem-solving questions, whereby these are things that they would need to calculate in real life, especially when it has to do with tax, interest rates, and stuff that they might find very useful out there.
Talk to us about at the end of the competition, the winners and what that was like.
It was very close. It was very close, and most of them, did answer most of their questions. So at the end of the competition, they went for the final jeopardy, we call it, whereby they had to bet their points. And many of them strategized, even in that case, as to how much points they will be betting and as to how much points they might probably not risk betting. So we also have the assistance of the homeroom teachers. Some of them, were with them, advising them how they would strategize with their points because the points were so close.
And from the Math Olympiad in the morning, the students then participated in a puck-to-puck competition in the afternoon.
Our main event, right, for the day is the puck-to-puck Ulama competition. And we will be having several teams here at the Belize High School of Agriculture, which means all of them will be students. They will be participating in a competition, and they will be playing against each other. Currently, right now, we have registered about 4 teams that will be competing for this, and we hope to have more, because here at BHSA, the students also love playing puck-to-puck, as you might know it as. But here we also play Ulama, which is the next modality of it, and we'll be using the rules for puck-to-puck this afternoon, and we will be having students participating in a very competitive, I would say, event, and I have also seen the eagerness in them.
The school, according to Cal, has its own puck-to-puck team and is always looking to the community for support to continue promoting the Mayan culture.
I'd just like to probably invite any institution, NGOs out there, if you would want to assist the Belize High School of Agriculture's team, because we have a team full of vibrant young boys, and also we have our Mayan princesses, and all of them are very proud, to depict and portray their culture. And I have seen that it's something that has been growing here at BHSA. And if you haven't heard about it, you can check it out at Belize, Ipinkan, and there you will see all the trajectory presentations of the team. And we usually also like to invite, the youths to partake into this, because it's something really nice, and it's a new sport and a cultural event here at Belize.
At the end of the day, the students from the Class B1 walked away as the winners of the Math Olympiad. The big birds are already fluffing their feathers as it relates to the definitive agreement that has major attention in the Belizean sphere. The matter is the main topic on conversation at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table, and it might soon find itself in court, as the Port of Belize Limited has notified former Minister of Economic Development and Investment under the UDP administration, Erwin Contreras, that it has all intention of pursuing legal action against him. Through the service of Senior Counsel Godfrey Smith, PBL tells Contreras it will sue on the stand for misfeasance in public office arising from the defendant's deliberate, willful, unlawful, and clandestine signing of the definitive agreement between Portico Enterprise Limited and the Port of Magical Belize and the Government of Belize, dated 1st October 2020, which resulted in financial loss to the claimant. In his less than 1 hour press conference, Scheinbauer was asked for comment on the matter.
All public officials, all elected members of the House of Representatives should be on notice that they are answerable to the laws of Belize, they are answerable to the people of Belize, and whatever accountability the former minister needs to answer for, I totally support the rule of law and the processes playing out to hold him accountable for whatever corruption or unethical behavior happened there. Likewise, don't drive looking in the review and expect that we progress. Likewise, the Prime Minister, the Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance, and whoever was behind bringing that document to Cabinet are co-conspirators. They are co-conspirators, yes.
Have you had a chance to speak with Mr. Contreras as yet?
No.
Are you planning to do so?
I have not been in touch with him, and no one can find him. He's not saying anything. I would prefer to focus on what is right. He's not been answering to any of the officials that I know that have tried to reach out to him.
Notably, the former minister has not made any public comments in relation to the matter that will likely find him in court. For several weeks, Belizeans across the country have been experiencing severely hot conditions, which seem to be getting worse as the day goes on. The National Meteorological Service of Belize issued a release addressing the situation, highlighting that since the start of the heat season in April, the country has experienced 15 heat waves across the country. Senior meteorologist Shania Young today explained the phenomenon causing this year's severe heat, which she says is not uncommon for this time of the year.
Several locations, at least to the latter parts of May, from the 28th to the 31st, broke their daily records for the month. However, none of those stations that we have around the country broke the overall record for May. For instance, in Central Farm and Belmopan, the record for that particular month is about 42 degrees, or 41.7 in Belmopan, and that is around 108 degrees Fahrenheit and 106. So the highest for those 2 months was 39. And so none of them exceeded the 40 thresholds thus far.
So this isn't unprecedented?
No. If I recall correctly, the station at the airport, for instance, ranked fourth. So it's the fourth warmest year. And in terms of Libertad, it was the second warmest year. So it is close to what has been the historical extreme, but it has not exceeded that value for the entire month of May. But those 3 particular days, starting from the 28th of May, did exceed their daily maximum temperature.
Now, if you are wondering what has been causing the heat waves in our country, Young says it is mainly attributed to a high-pressure system recorded in the region.
Then we have been experiencing a high-pressure system, and we are currently in a transition phase. Before we were in an and La Nina phase that has transitioned to neutral. La Nina typically gives us more rainfall, while neutral it can be either or, and we're currently on path to going into an El Nino phase. For Belize and much of the Caribbean, an El Nino phase would result in drier conditions. It should, to some extent, suppress hurricane development. And so that is currently what we are in. And as you've noticed, typically this is or should be or start of a rainy season, but it hasn't really started because of that transition phase and us being in a high pressure situation. And basically there's not just a lot of moisture around currently, even though this is normally our wet season. So those conditions have contributed to the heat, and we are actually in our heat season. For the Caribbean, the heat season is normally from May to October, but for Belize, or starts even earlier in April. So we are currently in our heat season. So these temperatures are not anomalies. They are common for this time of the year, but I guess for the last few years, since we were in a La Nina, persons haven't been feeling as hot or the heat hasn't been as bad. But since we are transitioning into drier conditions, persons are reminded of how hot Belize can get.
Extreme and sometimes unbearable heat that we feel throughout the day, however, is caused by the humidity in Belize, and not necessarily the actual high temperatures being recorded.
There's a difference between what the actual temperature recorded is and what people feel. There are several different factors that contributes to that. For instance, most persons I have seen circulating on social media that the temperature for a particular location is 102 or 107 because that's what their mobile app is saying. But the highest temperature recorded for the particular month was like only actually 101.7. And that's because they feel what you feel is actually higher than what is observed due to the humidity. Belize is very humid, so persons would be irritated or feel uncomfortable with the heat because of the humidity rather than the actual temperature. So that 101 actually feels like maybe 118, and that's why people are complaining about the heat, but it's not necessarily what is actually recorded.
And for those wondering, you can expect a short period of relief from the heat in the coming days, but it won't last for long.
Towards the end of this week and at least early next week, there is going to be more cloudy conditions, but as well an increase in shower activity. First, mostly along coastal and southern areas, and most areas, but especially in those locations, as there is a tropical wave that should come close to our area. It could be associated with a low pressure, and that would be what would be causing the increase in moisture, but then also increase in rains this weekend into early next week.
Is it expected, though, that when those rains subside, that we'll just continue back with this heat?
Yes, that is a possibility. Most persons would expect that the rainfall during the rainy season would be continuous, right? When it starts to rain, then every few days, then the rain continues. But our current forecast for the entire rain season is for below normal. And that doesn't mean that you can't get days or even a few days where we have excess rainfall, so you can still get flooding, but overall, at the end of the 6-month period, the accumulated rainfall would be less than what we normally would get. So those are still expected, but there are going to be dry spells and also heat wave events embedded, at least 30 events during the entire rainy season up until the end of November.
While it is believed that extreme heat during the period June to November will most likely translate to increased hurricane activity, Young says it is not so, and this year is expected to be a below average hurricane season.
For a hurricane to develop, there are several different factors. I've noticed that a lot of persons have been saying that, well, because it's very hot, then that means that this season should be, and like you should expect like a lot of systems, but that is just one component, and it's not the air temperature, it's actually the sea surface temperature. In the tropical Atlantic, the sea surface temperatures are above normal, but there are several different factors. One of that is the wind shear. You typically need low wind shear for a tropical cyclone to develop, and with the El Nino, that typically suppresses the air, causes wind shear to be high, and that would like rip apart the storms. So if the El Nino event do develop, that should suppress or hinder the development of any tropical system. But like I said, it hasn't developed yet. When it does develop, there isn't currently any indication of whether it will be a strong El Nino event. If it is a strong El Nino event, then it will be drier, and then you will have more frequency of droughts. But currently, that strength of that system hasn't been determined, not just by Belize, but overall, because whenever you're in the transition, it's kind of either or until the phenomenon actually starts to develop, and then you would know whether or not it will be as strong or otherwise.
With the heat expected to continue across the country, residents are advised to take precaution when out in the sun, drink a lot of water, and remain shaded when possible. Governor General Her Excellency Dame Froila Zalam received 4 new ambassadors to Belize this morning at the Belize House in Belmopan. Her Excellency Heronia Baitelaku, Ambassador of Kosovo, Her Excellency May von Heinitz, Ambassador of Ireland, Her Excellency Atsumi Yashiro, Ambassador of Japan, and Her Excellency Kim Høiland Christensen, Ambassador of Denmark, each presented their letters of credence to the Governor General. All ambassadors expressed their wish to continue to strengthen and build the bilateral relationships between their respective governments and Belize. The Governor General welcomed the ambassadors, communicated her wish for strengthened and continued mutual support with the ambassadors' government. She also wished them success during their time in Belize. And that's the news. We invite you to join us for another newscast on Wednesday, June 14th here on CTV3 and Face FM 106.7. Remember that to read the text version of the news, you can visit our website at ctv3belizenews.com. You can also log on to our Facebook page for current stories at facebook.com/CTV3 News or our YouTube channel at CTV3 News BZ. Remember to wash your hands and remain safe. From all of us here at CTV3 News, thank you for watching and listening. Good night.